Hello there, welcome to your game review and happy holidays as well. So this was quite an interesting game with 30 minutes as a time control, which is a good time control. In this one we will try to understand what we should do if the opponent is not playing by the opening principles, if he is leaving his king in the center, not castling and not developing pieces. And the short answer is we should open up the position as soon as possible and start an attack before his pieces are ready. So d4, b6. So this is a mistake because it does not take the center and it does not develop any pieces. And now white can simply put 2 pawns in the center and he will have a perfect center. c4 is also possible. It doesn't take the whole center, but it helps. So bishop b7, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7. So again, black is not fighting for the center, and this allows white to take the whole center, and when possible we should take as much of it as possible, and then we will finish development and white will have a very nice position in the center. e3 instead, this is maybe a bit soft. e4 was of course a lot better because the center is over here. Okay, e3, d6, bishop d3, h6, and castle. So white is playing all the correct moves in f5. So black has pushed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. He has moved only 2 pieces. Now white has 5 pieces developed against only 2. The opponent's king is in the center. All of this says that white should open up the position because he is ready to start the fight and the opponent is not ready. And here the obvious way to open up the position is with e4, because now black cannot stop the position from opening. He cannot play, for example, f4, because this will be taken. And so either white will open up the e-file like this, or black will have to take, and white can recapture with either the bishop or the knight. And now, for example, the e-file is open. Now the weakness on g6 has been exposed. White can soon start attacking it. This king is in the center. Another idea is to play d5, maybe use this square on e6, and black's position is horrible. And if he does not take, he must defend the pawn here. And for example, if e6, white can open up the position even further with the instructive move d5, now creating even more pawn tension. Now black cannot play e5 because this pawn hangs. If he takes here, we can even take here because now it's undefended. And all of this will end terribly for black because his king is in the center, our pieces have been developed, our king is out of the center, white is winning. So bishop d2 instead, which develops a piece, but the bishop is not that much better on d2. And again, every move we make now will give black a chance to catch up in development. And if he finishes development, he should be kind of fine. So now knight f6, and here knight h4 was played, which is a good move to attack g6, after which black must defend it with the king. And now, since his king has moved, his king is now stuck in the center, which means, again, we must open up the position as soon as possible before black gets enough time to finish development, kick away the knight, get the rook in the game. So time is of the essence. And again, in the opening we have 3 goals. Castle the king, develop pieces, and fight for the center. So white has already developed the king, he has developed the pieces, now he must fight for the center. There's not that much else to do. And the best way to fight for the center is to open it up, and especially once we have more pieces developed. Here, white has a few strong moves. Even e4 is possible here as a sacrifice. For example, after knight takes, we can take. And then, for example, play queen g4, attacking here and here. The rook can join, something like f3 can be played at some point. And black's king is terribly weak. His pieces are undeveloped. White should be winning. Instead, h3 is played, but this is a very bad move because it does nothing for white. It doesn't develop anything, it doesn't help with castling as we have castled, and it does not threaten to open up the position. Maybe g4 is an idea, but there is no point in opening up our own king. We could just do all this with e4. So the best move here would have been d5. This not only takes space, but also blocks the bishop, which will allow e4 now. So for example, if black tries to develop, we will play e4. Now this pawn is undefendable. If he takes, we'll take. And now the weakness on g6 will be opened up. The king is getting opened up. The e-file is getting opened up. Black is just completely lost. But after h3, now black gets the chance to play e6. and then he gets a chance to play g5. This was the last chance to play d5 or e4, and now suddenly, after black would have been able to play knight e4, now we cannot play the move e4 ourselves anymore. So black will have enough time to consolidate, our knight is attacked, so now unfortunately black will be fine. For example, knight f3, knight d7, he can play rook f8 and castle like this. Now we get some kind of standard position where black is completely fine because we did not use his mistakes. And up until here, white was playing very quickly, which is also a mistake. Why are we playing so quickly? The opening is an important part of the game, so if the opponent is playing so weirdly, we should try to punish him. So g5, knight f3, here, and now again, the opponent's king is in the center, he is trying to castle, but here white still has the chance to open up the position, mainly with e4. All the pieces are asking for e4 to be played, and now, for example, let's say everything will be exchanged. After all this, the king can go and hide, but even here, with these pawns advanced, this pawn is weak, the queen side is not developed. White can play, for example, h4, creating threats on g5, using it as a hook. Black is again more or less lost because of the terribly weak king. White has easy development on the e-file as well. Again, open up the position. We must do this. d5 is also possible. Try to undermine this pawn. Okay, knight h2. This is a very strange move, as we're going backwards with the knight, and the knight is on now a terrible square. This does not help at all. And now bishop goes back to c8. For some reason, black should, of course, try to finish development. But now queen f3 with tempo, c6. Again, what move should we make? Definitely e4. Here black can at least play f4, but this does not keep the position close, though it is the right idea. After f4, white should again try to open up the position as soon as possible. Again, black is not developing. He only has 2 pieces developed. We have developed all of our pieces, so this is the moment to strike. We must do something as soon as possible. And here, e5 opens up the e-file or creates big threats. Let's say he takes, we can take back, attacking the knight. Let's say he moves, queen h5, the queen can go to g6, the knight can join, the pawn can even join, this knight can go to e4 and d6. And once the position is opened up, we can start making use of our pieces. So instead, bishop c2, but now e5 is played, and unfortunately most of the advantage is now gone, because even though the opponent's king is in the center and his pieces are undeveloped, now we cannot open the position anymore, because e5 was stopped. So now the game goes into more positional waters. White does have some initiative, but after knight e2 and let's say bishop e6, now unfortunately white doesn't really have too much, because the pieces are all passive on the second rank. There's not that much to do. Still, g3 is a good idea, but at this point white will have to sacrifice an f4 to do anything special. So bishop b7, bishop b3, c5, but now this weakens this square, and white should put a knight there, which black will probably take, and then white can recapture with either the e pawn or the c pawn, in either case gaining a good pawn on d5. So this happens, knight g4. Again, the opponent is not really developing his pieces. Here queen f5 happens, queen g4, so this is also a strange moment. Why are we giving a check if we're just going to go back? This probably means that we didn't really check for the opponent's moves. But okay, and then pawn goes back, queen h5. Now the queens are exchanged, and after knight e5, black has big problems with c7 and b6. So at this point, white is more or less winning. Material, rook e6, and knight c7, a nice fork by white. And here, black of course should try to lose only the exchange after this. White is winning, but there still will be a lot of work to be done. For example, the knight can go to d4, so there is still things to be done. After rook d6, this is an easy win, as now white has won a whole rook. And after bishop rook c6, white decides to give up the knight for the pawn, as it's probably going to get trapped. But there was no reason to do this, as bishop a4 would untrap the knight. So again, white had a lot of time here, so we shouldn't really use so little time. We should try to think as much as possible in these games. But okay, this all worked out, as black decides to resign here, and of course the position is winning. So quite an interesting game, but I think white played too softly here. If the opponent is not developing pieces, and if we are developing pieces, then at some point we should try to open up the position, as otherwise the opponent will slowly catch up in development and close the position, and then our lead in development will go nowhere. So we should open up the position as soon as possible after the opponent has broken the opening principle. So already here, e4 would have been more or less winning. We must open the position when the opponent's king is in the center.